And welcome, good morning and good day, everybody. My name is Martin Gilbraith, and this latest session in the online Top Focus Conversation series is on the topic of how engaging can your online session be? We have an hour, and the aims of the session I'm going to share with you now. Essentially, we're here to give you an opportunity to connect, share and learn with others, sharing an interest in this particular topic. We're going to be applying the ICA's Top Focus Conversation method and giving you an opportunity to experience that. And at the end of the session also we'll be sharing some, giving you an overview of the method and sharing some sources of further information and support. Excuse me, about us. Your facilitation team today, we are the training team of the ICA UK Facilitating Virtual Events Training, which is a 7 times 2-hour session training program that will be launched, I think, this week or next week through ICA UK. We're already delivering this training for 3 in-house groups in a particular European agency, and I think some of them may be with us today, so welcome to you too if you're here. Because this is a very large group today, we've got a large team. 7 out of the 8 of us are here with us, and we each have very specific roles. So we're going to be using this as an opportunity to practice and demonstrate how to work as a team in facilitating large groups. We'll also be using it as an opportunity for a case study when we come to the final session in this training program on how to facilitate large groups. So let me invite each of my colleagues on the facilitation team in turn just to say hello and tell us where they're located today and what their role is today. So I'm located in London in the UK, and I'll be your lead facilitator. Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan Evans, and I'm based in Cardiff, just out Cardiff in Wales, and my job is to support Martin.
Thank you very much, and you're also my designated survivor in case I should disappear altogether for the meeting room. Thank you for that. Dawn?
Hi, I'm Dawn Williams. I'm based up in Northumberland, and my role today is breakout rooms, which is very exciting because there's such a lot of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Orla.
I'm Orla. I'm based in Manchester in the United Kingdom, and I am your bouncer and security specialist today. So if anybody you misbehave, I shall hurl you out into the street. I'm complete, and I pass to Esther May.
Esther May Cox. I'm based in Iowa, USA, on an acreage southwest of Des Moines, so very rural, middle USA. And my job today is chat monitoring. I pass to Alan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alan Heckman. I'm a facilitator and trainer, and today I'm helping out by, I'm the person who passes the microphone around the auditorium. So if you raise your hand, I'm the one who might invite you to unmute yourself and speak up when the time comes. And next on the list is Nylene, please.
And I'm Nylene Verbaten in Sacramento, California. And my job is to help Esther May in the chat. Back to you.
And there were 450 of you registered for this session. So thank you all for showing up, those of you who are here. We're not expecting all 450, but it looks like we have 184 already. Now is the time for you to find out who's here amongst yourselves. I encourage you to type in the chat to do that. The chat may move very fast with a lot of people typing in it. So if the chat is moving too fast for you to read, please know that you can widen the chat in order that it doesn't move so fast. And you can also download the chat and view the chat file if you need to do that. While you're doing that, let me just say that our aim here is to try to facilitate a conversation among you on the topic, how engaging can your online session be? As I say, we'll be using the focus conversation method. We'll be using the tools within Zoom. We might have chosen to use additional tools as well with such a large group, but we're here to demonstrate what you can do with the basic tools of Zoom. So we'll be using audio and video. We'll be using text chat. We'll be using breakout rooms. We'll have a poll at the end. We'll be inviting you to use the raise hand function in the participants list, and you'll find your way to the participants list at the bottom of the screen if you need to raise your hand in order to be unmuted. And I also want you to know, if you're not aware of it, that you can switch from gallery view to speaker view at the top right of your screen in order to see everybody's video screens instead of just the person that's speaking. In terms of the chat, Nylene and Esther May are going to try to keep an eye on that and either mention anything verbally there that looks like it'll be of interest to the whole group, or invite you to speak yourselves. We can't guarantee that we'll be able to answer, but we hope it's going to be a fun and fast-moving session. With that, I think it's time to give you a chance to introduce yourselves verbally to each other. So, Dawn, are we ready with the first round of breakout groups? You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yes, we're ready with the first round. So I'm going to send you to breakout rooms. There's about 4 of you in each of the rooms in 3, 2, 1.
So welcome back as you arrive. Oh, here everybody comes. 101, 117, 150. Welcome back, everybody. Did you meet somebody nice? You didn't have a lot of time, but I hope you had an opportunity to introduce yourselves. I hope you met somebody new. Maybe you even met somebody who you've previously known. Oh, that's good. There's some thumbs up. Lovely people, somebody says. Fantastic. So we're going to go into our focus conversation now. As I say, we're talking about online sessions. How engaging can your online sessions be? And we want to start by sharing something of our experience of online sessions, and in particular, what kind of online sessions do we have experience of? So let me ask Esther May or Nylene to copy that question into the chat. And we're going to give you just a minute or two to respond to that question in the chat. And then we'll read a few of your comments and invite a few of you to speak. We're interested to know here, what kind of online sessions do you have experience of? Be aware, it doesn't have to be a work session or a business meeting. It might be, somebody was, Alan, you were talking about a ukulele concert or practice earlier. I was talking about Taoist Tai Chi chanting. There's all kinds of stuff happens online these days, so think of any kind of online session.
So we have storytelling, healing, online coaching, something to do with the pony club, but I missed it as the chat moved up.
I see yoga. I see kindergarten.
I see
training. I see
Fantastic.
friend hanging. Oh, that's not hanging your friends. That's hanging out with your friends.
I see workshops galore, including yoga and Pilates and fitness.
Client
strategic
meetings.
Planning.
Parties. And
My
facilitation.
life is in Zoom, as Mark Summers. Aren't we all, Mark?
If anybody thinks they have the personal experience of the most unusual online session, please raise your hand now and let's hear it. Such diversity indeed. Has anybody got their hands raised, Alan?
Not yet, no, but please go ahead and feel free, even if you think it might be the second most unusual, if you like.
Yeah.
I had to judge a cookery competition online, and the age group was the under 16, so I had to be very polite, but obviously I didn't get a chance to taste anything. So
Arcana is Arcana has your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you're ready to, Arcana.
Yeah, the kind of things that we never imagined that we would do online, like playing, musical quizzes and with the family, with friends, and also doing online meditation with a large group of people from all across the world, and so many different kinds of online interesting things that come from friends and family.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And Alice has her hand raised. Go ahead, Alice, and unmute yourself, please.
Hello, everyone. I did I'm not sure it's that unusual, but I did a murder mystery night with my friends.
Very good.
Great.
It was really good. I've never done that before. We all dressed up, and it was very good.
Fantastic. Let's hear a couple more. Nicola?
Okay. Nicola, you'll have to unmute yourself. I've just requested.
Sorry, my son did an escape the room, where you get locked in a room, you have to do the challenges. He did one of those with the local scouts group, and they had hilarious fun. And then they did a scavenger hunt at the end of it, and he kept running up saying, I need a packet of toilet rolls, I need some pepper. And they had brilliant fun with it.
Thank you. We'll hear just one or two more. We're not going to have time for all of them. In a moment, we're going to go into breakouts again to talk a little bit more in depth about our experience. But yes, go ahead. Let's hear from Ramin and then Wendy.
Hi, yes, nice to see you again, Martin.
Nice
I had a nice experience with the Toastmasters. I'm a Toastmaster, and we were at a speaking conference with 350 people. So that was quite interesting to see, even a speaking competition. So that was wonderful.
Wow, thank you. Wendy?
Yes, so mine was pet working, which is, as it sounds, networking with your pets. So quite a unique event whilst people are at home. I think we're all learning a bit more about people's personal lives, and it's just nice for them to be able to introduce the pets rather than them just Zoom bombing themselves in anyway.
Thank you. I did wonder what pet working was. Apologies if you haven't had a chance to speak this time. I'm going to invite Dawn to send us into breakout rooms again, and this time you'll have a slightly longer time, 12 minutes, also in groups of 3 or 4. And this time we're inviting you to share your experience of some of these online sessions, and in particular, when have you felt particularly engaged or disengaged, and what was going on? So when have you felt particularly engaged or disengaged in an online session, and what was going on? You'll have 12 minutes in small groups to discuss that. Are you ready, Dawn?
Yep, I'm going to send you to breakout rooms in 3, 2, 1.
Thank you. And there they go.
I'm just going to make sure that nobody's been kicked out again. Mute myself.
So, welcome back as you start to return. 73, 83. Welcome back. Hope you had an opportunity to share some stories there in your breakout groups. Give me a thumbs up on your screen if you had a good conversation there. Anybody have a good conversation? Yeah, you can show me an actual thumb, or you can use the little gold thumb on the screen. Lovely, fantastic. We're 193, 194 in the room now, so I think that must be everybody. We'd love to hear some of those stories now, and we're going to invite you to raise your hand in the participant list if you'd be willing to share a brief story about one occasion in an online session where you felt particularly engaged or disengaged. What was going on? And please do also share in the chat. You may not be able to follow the chat while we're talking, but the chat will be saved and will be shared afterwards. So it would be great to capture some of these stories in the chat as well. So I can see, well, Heidi and Louise still have their hands raised from last time. So let's start with them and see if they have a story to share. And everybody else, please do go and raise your hand if you'd be willing to share a story briefly. Heidi, Alan, would you like to invite Heidi to speak?
Heidi, you're unmuted, I think. Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, I guess, or maybe it's not. Anyway, I went to an online Tupperware party that was coupled with a bingo game, and anyone can do a bingo card for whatever thing. But how this worked was they had pictures of different Tupperware, and so as they were drawing the Tupperware item that you would find on your bingo card, they had a picture of it, and then they would explain the item. And then between sets, after people did bingo and won a Tupperware item, they would Zoom to different people's houses for cooking demonstrations in Tupperware. And so the website where you can make your own bingo card for whatever you'd like for $15 is bakerbingo.com.
Thank you. Please put it in the chat.
Okay.
Thank you. Brilliant. Let's see if Louise has a story to share, and then I'll ask Esther May and Nylene if they could read some from the chat. Louise?
My story is not nearly as exciting as that. Sorry. We in our group with Suzanne and Jason, we talked about actually Jason had been on a design thinking workshop, and they used a mixture of Miro boards, but with all sorts of other sounding games, which sounded really good. But Miro boards have been something I found keep me engaged.
Thank you.
Britt Jurgensen, who's on this call, has used them successfully. And Flinger is another one I really liked, which meant we could all answer questions and put post-it notes up. It was a similar sort of tool.
Yeah.
But both really good and quite quick.
I see Annie is asking, what is a Miro board? It's a digital canvas, I think would be the generic name for it, like a whiteboard, or a sticky wall for those who know sticky walls. Anybody else like to share a story? Please raise your hand, or let me ask my teammates. Is there anything in the chat? Yes, Megan.
Fran O'Hara, I know that you want to say something.
Oh, great.
Yes, I can't see you at the moment, but would you like to unmute your microphone for Fran O'Hara?
So Fran, I can't quite find you because it's a list of 200 people.
I've got you.
Oh, you got it? Okay, great.
Yeah. Go ahead, Fran.
Okay, just a quick story. So we use visual methodology. I'd sent people some templates in advance with pens, and we were saying if you send people free pens, they're automatically very engaged. So they had the free pens, they had the templates, and I did a pre-activity, and it was a team review of a funding project. Draw, write, or doodle something you're really proud of from the year. And one guy didn't read it correctly, so we had 7 people sharing things, and it was really engaged. And then he put up his loft conversion image because he thought it was just generally something he was really proud of. So it was very funny. And what was really nice was that we all laughed so much, and I sort of really remembered how much when you all laughed together, that team that were all over the UK, they all got very engaged, and it was just so funny. And then I said, okay, I'll draw that into the picture, and it's like a running thread now. It's in the event summary, so it's kind of like bringing in those opportunities for people to communicate and stuff. It's the laughter, isn't it, really? If you can get laughter in there, which is harder, but you just got to try it and see what works. So that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you. Lovely. 1 or 2 other stories, anybody? When have you felt particularly engaged or disengaged? Have we heard about disengaged?
Please do feel free to raise your hand in the participant list if you'd like to speak up.
Well, here's one that actually describes almost all of the things that can go bad. Bad sessions, slow, monotonous, boring, 2.5 hours long, one person delivering for 2 hours. So it's all of that stuff that can just go haywire, if you will. And then the engagement strategies from Andrea, frequent interaction via chat, poll, emojis, breakout rooms. And then somebody indicated peppy music during construction activities. So there are lots of things that we can add to these events to make them engaging.
Thank you.
We do have 2 people interested in speaking up now. Go ahead, Sonia.
Hi. I have found this is more being a participant as opposed to actually running a virtual workshop. I have found that there have been some workshops where I just don't know the difference between it being a virtual workshop and, say, watching a YouTube video post-event on the same subject. So I think there's something there about really needing to keep it interactive so that there are exercises that keep people engaged. So it's not just something that they can watch afterwards. And then I've got something quite controversial to say, and we talked about this in our breakout room, which is about the chat function on Zoom. Personally, I find it really distracting. I find it really hard to listen. When I'm running my own virtual webinars, I actually, as a host, I actually turn the chat function off unless there's a request coming to me. I think you have to use it really carefully, because otherwise people can have whole conversations by themselves and they're not paying attention at all. And just as in a real room, I would ask people to either share with us what they're saying, or to try and draw their attention back to the event that's going on in the room rather than talking amongst themselves.
Thank you.
But I'm aware as well, people like it, people like to chat with each other. So I just think chat is something that needs to be used really carefully.
Thank you, absolutely. I think all these tools and tips need to be used carefully, don't they? One person's engagement is another person's distraction or overwhelm. Let's hear a couple of others. Katie and then Lydia.
So I've been to a couple of seminars around play and movement, and how movement's really important. So actually in my breakout room with Carol, we did a bit of a movement activity to get up and like flexible. But there is something about if you're trying to be creative in particular, there is something around movement to tap into that creativity side of things. So at the beginning of all of my team meetings, I make everyone do stretches, because I think it's important. Yeah, there's some really fun exercises you can do, and I'm going to try and find the link and put it in the chat, that you can do as a whole Zoom. There's some really, really fun ones that you can do in this kind of view.
Thank you. We're coming on to our next question. What are some tips and tools that can make a difference between engaged and disengaged? I mean, we've heard a few of these already, so please keep them coming. I think we had Lydia and then Alison. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lydia from Indonesia. So the experience that we had to really drive the engagement from the participant is to really change, exchange the meta plan or sticky wall to Google Sheet in the Google Drive. So starting from the breakouts, so small group, and going to plenary. So when we're doing like brainstorming and making consensus in the group, so we record everyone in the same time simultaneously in the Google Sheets. At least that is what has been helping us really to collaborate and note down everything that we discuss in the sessions, and we have the output at the end of the sessions.
Thank you. And Alison?
Do I need to unmute?
No, we hear you.
Okay.
The negative is something that we're not going to have in this session, because I can see that you've got a group of 7 people who are it doesn't happen. But it's if a facilitator is by themselves, that there's quite often a stop while they look at their screen. And then, oh, it's not working, and then you can see them panicking, and it's just horrible. That is difficult. Anything where somebody's looking at their tech is really hard. And so my first lesson was always get somebody to do the tech for you. Right. And then judge, as you have done, judge how big a team you need by the number of people that you've got coming. On the good, so that can be really, even on a tiny meeting, that can be really disruptive. But on the good side of Zoom, I have really loved seeing all people's Zoom bombs, their children coming in. It helps make everybody such a more rounded person than what we usually get to see, which is somebody suited and booted or in their presentable face. And I actually think that we're going to come out of this whole period of coronavirus knowing a little bit more and understanding that this thing called professionalism is not maybe all it's cracked up to be.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's hear a couple more. Alice and then Sonia. Tips and tools that can make a difference.
Just on that point, Alison, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's really interesting to see different. You get a bit more familiar with people, and that's really true. And also, there's a really good article on ICA's website about the role of a producer. So I'd recommend that everybody go and have a check that out with the tech. What I was going to say is, actually, it's not something I've experienced in work meetings, but actually in friends meetings is. I think it's important to have breaks. So to schedule in 5, just 10 minutes to just go and have a coffee, just get off the computer, refresh, and then come back. And actually, probably it's a very good thing in a meeting setting as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's take a last comment from Sonia on this, tips and tools that can make a difference.
Hi, everyone from Belgrade. I was also to say about the break, but from a perspective of facilitator, I found it fascinating to turn off my video and sound and let the group continue chatting, as in the networking break. That's one thing. The other thing is with strategic planning that I facilitated, I saw the difference between one session, which was super successful, and the other session was that in the second session, I was focusing more on what should be covered and completed by the end of the session and less on the relationships within the group. And I used the same participatory methods, but the energy was very different.
Thank you. I see Simon Rees has a comment but hasn't figured out how to raise his hand. Welcome, Simon. Nice to see you. Let's take a last comment from you.
Simon, I can't quite figure out how to unmute you because I need to be able to find you. So if you would mind
I've
raising
got it, Alan.
You've got it, great.
You got me here, yeah. Hi, Martin. Nice to see you. I was going to talk about technology and people who can't work the technology, and here I am, the person who can't work the technology. But my point, and that's already been made, but my point is, particularly for the less formal sessions, you need to have an end time. Sometimes these online sessions can drag on and on. You say, no, we're going to finish by such and such a time. I'm a member of a book club, and we have our meetings now online, but they're much shorter than the face-to-face ones because they have to be, if you stretch them out any longer, they're a pain in the backside.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Either fix an end date or be a strong chair and say, okay, I think we're done now. Will we call it a day?
Thank you. And we have less than 15 minutes till our end time. We do have a hard stop. Thank you for that. So let me move us on to our final question, which is, what's one insight, tip or tool that you can take away and apply from this conversation? What's one insight, tip or tool that you can take away and apply? And I invite you to take a minute or two to share those in the chat. And as I say, the chat, you can save the chat for yourselves, and I will save it and circulate it afterwards. So this will help us to capture some of the insights from this conversation. I'll just give you a minute or two to do that, and we'll look through and read out a few of the comments that we see. Breaks, music, movement, variety.
Don't overuse the tools. Small chunks work well. Work with a co-facilitator. Always important, Martin.
Yeah.
Involving body and spirit. Good balance of visuals, airtime, and involve participants.
Movement. Good discussions around how important movement is.
Can use multiple screens.
I see Larry is saying he'd love to have some tips from me and the other facilitators. Well, Larry, there isn't going to be an occasion for that, but this isn't it. We'll be sharing some other opportunities at the end of the session when we'll be doing that.
Multisensory approaches.
Fantastic. Lots of insights there. Well, please do continue to keep sharing those insights and takeaways in the chat, if you will. We're not here today to give you our own insights as to how to make online sessions engaging, except, of course, to do the best to demonstrate it in how we make this online session engaging. But I am here to tell you a little bit about the ICA's focused conversation method, which is the method that we've used to structure today's conversation. So let me take just a few minutes to talk you through this. Some of you I know are very familiar with this, others will have come across it. In case you haven't, the technology of participation is the name given to the facilitation methodology developed by ICA, the Institute of Cultural Affairs, over 50-odd years of working in communities and organizations worldwide. And the top methodology is built upon the ORID model. ORID is an acronym for the 4 levels of this model of human process. So essentially, ORID is a model of human process. It's how we think clearly, when we think clearly. The model says that we first experience life and we know what's going on around us through our senses, through our sensory perception, sight, sound, hearing, taste, and smell. And it's based on that sensory perception that we have some kind of intuitive or emotional reaction, what we call in the model a reflective response. This is where emotions and feelings stir. We might also be reminded of something, reminded of some previous experience. And it's based on both the objective and the reflective level that we begin to make sense of our experience. We interpret, conscious connections and ideas form, understanding. And the model says that it's only based on all 3 of those levels that we come to any kind of conclusion, resolution, or decision, or even action. So the model suggests that all of us go through these 4 levels of experience all of the time, and we're very often unaware of it. Because facilitation is essentially leadership of an intentional human process, a group human process, what better model could there be to design a facilitation process than a model of how we ourselves process our experience? So we use the 4 levels of the ORID model as a framework for building a process in order to lead a group together from the start to the end of a process, in order to take them from a surface to a more depth understanding. So the focused conversation method is the simplest application of ORID to facilitation. And essentially, you determine, first of all, your aims for the process. What's the purpose of the conversation? We talk in terms of rational and experiential aim. In top, you might think of that also as tangible and intangible, or hard and soft aims. And then you craft a series of questions to lead a group through the 4 levels of thinking in order to achieve those aims. Finally, you think of how do you open the conversation, how do you close it in order to make a clean start and a finish. In this case, the questions that we asked, it was essentially a 4-question focused conversation. After our introductions, who's in the room, that's also objective level data. After that, we asked what kind of online events do we have experience of? And in this case, we invited you to share some of those in the chat, and a few of you shared verbally as well. Then at the reflective level, we asked you to share stories of when you have felt particularly engaged or disengaged and what was going on. And in this case, we invite you to do that in breakout groups, and heard some of the stories when we got back into plenary. At the interpretive level in this case today, we asked you to share some tips and tools that can make a difference to how engaged online sessions are. We didn't actually ask you the crux question, how engaging can your online session be, but hope you're beginning to get an insight into that through this session and through all the tips and tools you've been exchanging. And finally, what's one insight, tip, or tool that you can take away and apply? That was the decisional level. In other words, what are you going to do with all of this? So that's the focused conversation method. It's worth saying that ORID can be applied as a meta method, not just to a short conversation with a small group or even a large group with use of breakouts. It can also be applied as a framework to design a longer session, maybe half a day or even a week or a month. It can be used as a framework to decide which methods, tools, platforms, etc. To use for which stage of a larger, longer process. As I say, this is one method of ICA's technology of participation. This slide just gives you a little bit of an insight into some of the other core methods and also the values that underlie the entire approach. And there are further resources available. You'll have these slides afterwards. You can click on the links in this slide to get direct access to the book, The Art of Focused Conversation, which has 100 sample conversations in it for you to draw on. And also getting to the bottom of top talks about the theory and the philosophy behind the whole methodology. And then there's also links to training courses, both online and face-to-face, when that becomes a possibility again. In particular, we have the Group Facilitation Methods course, which is a 2-day course face-to-face. It's 6 2-hour sessions online and coming up at the end of June. And then also we have training available on online facilitation as well. I have a 2.5-hour online introduction to facilitation. There's also a 90-minute session on the ICA website. And as I mentioned at the beginning, there's the new 7-session facilitating virtual events training. So that's all I have to say, I think, about the method. We actually do have a few minutes for questions, if anybody has any questions or reflections about the method, or if any of my colleagues, my co-facilitators, all of them also very experienced in this methodology, if any of you have anything to add, please do go ahead. Raise your hand if you'd like to speak, or type in the chat.
Well, we're waiting for anyone to raise their hand. I did see one question in the chat, which was, how can you bring scent or taste into online meetings? And that was from Milton. Thanks for that question, Milton. I think that's really good. I will tell you that this very day, this morning, I was in a meeting in which we were requested to bring 2 grapes. And when we went through an exercise of learning about tasting those grapes as a way to learn about wine. But I will also, that was great, but I will also highlight to you that although Martin's slide said the objective level is about sense data, and it certainly includes sense data, the way we use it in practice is not only to draw sense data, but also just to draw out any of the objective facts or the basic situation. So it's not only about sense data there in the method as Martin described it.
Thank you. Absolutely. One of the things I do to bring taste and smell into face-to-face meetings is I use scented Mr. Sketch markers, which is great fun because people wind up smelling them in the session and they get ink on their noses. If you've been to face-to-face training with me, you'll know that. Somebody earlier on in the session today talked about sending stuff through the post in preparation for an online session, which is a great way to bring something tangible and analog into an online session, as well as just asking people to reach for anything that they happen to have next to them. But send people something if you want them all to have the same smell or taste available to them. That's another way to do it.
There's a question from Louise. Would you like to go ahead, Louise?
I just want to say I have found this session very engaging. One of the things I've found about this session was the breakout rooms really do break up a presentation. My challenge is I work for the Parliament in Northern Ireland. Zoom, unfortunately, isn't a platform that I'm at the moment allowed to use. And if anybody can give me any evidence, I can take to my IT department to say, can we please use this? I just was wondering if there's, we're using MS Teams at the minute, which just isn't conducive to, I work with committees around, they're hoping to do virtual stakeholder events for gathering evidence. And I just have real challenges with using Teams as a platform. Are there any other platforms other than Zoom that we could investigate?
The other one that comes immediately to my mind is Adobe Connect.
Okay.
I think Teams and possibly others are planning to introduce breakout groups. I'm not sure that any others already have, but Adobe Connect has had breakout group function forever. It's very, very powerful. We talk of it as kind of the Rolls-Royce of online facilitation platforms,
okay.
Which is great if you want lots of functionality and if you have time and your group have time to learn it. But there is a steeper learning curve, so there's a greater investment in that sense.
And probably cost as well.
and it costs, yes, it costs a bit more than Zoom. We have about 5 minutes left till we're due to close. I'd like to invite Megan to open the poll, if I may, to invite you to share some feedback on the session. And then let's also have feedback or further questions in the chat or verbally.
We have one here from Sonia. Sonia, I'm sorry if I could ask you to once again unmute yourself. I messed you around there a little bit. Go ahead, Sonia.
Yeah, well, if it's okay, I just wanted to refer back to Louise. So
please.
That was why I raised my hand. Sorry, Martin.
Sorry.
In some of the work that I've been doing with clients that are very concerned about security, Louise, they've been using Google Meet, which have upped their security and their functions, and also the amount of people that you can have in a virtual workshop. There is the breakout facility, the breakout rooms facility. So, and it's very user friendly. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Amanda.
Hi there. It was just a question if anyone has experience of working with people who are maybe not too, I think someone else put it in the chat as well, and who are not too comfortable with technology. I imagine most of us here are quite IT comfortable, and but some of the people we work with or try to run our community events with are people who definitely first time and sort of using any kind of webinar facilities, and some are not even getting in to get to use any kind of webinar is uncomfortable space for them as well. So any tips or any ideas around that?
Let me invite anybody to share responses in the chat, if I may. I'm aware that we just have 3 minutes left. I'm happy to stay around for a few minutes after closing time, and anybody else who'd like to is welcome to as well. Megan, are you able to launch the poll? You're muted.
It's going, Martin.
The poll is actually running, yeah.
Oh, it is running. Okay, that's strange. I'm not seeing it. Okay, thank you. In that case, somebody else is going to... Megan, would you like to tell us what the poll is showing? Perhaps share the results if enough
I will
people have
share the
responded.
results. We are still getting a couple of people who are voting, but I'm going to end it 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to share the polling, share the results. Hopefully you can see those results. So a lot of people enjoyed the session and felt it was well paced and balanced, and 46% helped the conversation, gave me valuable insights on the topic, so that's nice, and on the method, the top method. And 55% said they can apply something they've learned here today. 35 strongly agreed with that, and 35% said they agreed. So that's great. And more than half agreed that they would recommend the session for others. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much indeed. Please do continue to share feedback in the chat if you would. I see Anisha's asking, will the chat be sent to everybody? It will. By the end of today or tomorrow at the latest, I shall circulate a link to the recording and the chat transcript to everybody who is registered, at least to everybody who is registered on my Eventbrite page. You can also download and save the chat yourself right now if you wish. If you go to the 3 little dots on the right of where you type in the chat, you'll see an option there to save the chat. Thank you so much to everybody for coming, and thank you to my facilitation team as well for joining me in the facilitation of this. There are more events, at least one more I think, in this ICA UK online top focus conversation series. So see the ICA UK website for that. And I have another free facilitation webinar myself next week in partnership with IF Australia, asking the question, when is online better than face-to-face? That's at 9 AM UK time, 6 PM Sydney time next Thursday. So please join me for that if you can. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording and bid you a good day. Thank you all.